Hey, good evening. And what a fabulous venue, right? Yeah. And yeah, listen, I mean, whatever Amin said, multiply that by 10. We are going to have a lot of great programming this year. Last year, our keynote speaker at TiCon was Frank Blake, the prior CEO of Home Depot. This year, we are going to plan somebody equally exciting. And so be there. And next month, we are going to have Kabir Barde. Kabir Barde is the CEO of OneTrust, which was, I don't know if you know this, but #1 on the fastest growing companies list in Fortune magazine. In the US, right. Yeah, so this incredible person actually had a lot of this mentoring come from Thai. So whether you are an entrepreneur today, whether you have been an entrepreneur in the past, or whether you want to be an entrepreneur or work with entrepreneurs, I hope you will consider Thai to be one place to come to and meet others without any affiliation. So we have amazing partnerships with organizations like ATDC and Atlanta Tech Village, and also, you know, today's speaker as well. So the highlight of today is going to be this next speaker, Charlie Paparelli. So Charlie is a person that helps entrepreneurs determine their next steps in business and life. That's what it says on your LinkedIn profile, right? And I believe that that's very true. I've known Charlie for the past few years, mostly through Angel Lounge, a program that he launched a few years ago. But Charlie is the OG of angel investing in Atlanta. Do you know what OG is? Original gangster. Okay. So he is the original gangster that started off pretty much one of the first ones to start. He started investing as an angel investor, guess how many years ago? 30 years ago, exactly. So he started investing in 1993. Okay, so that's amazing. I've been married for 30 years, guys. He's been investing for 30. So this is amazing. So proud that I can call Charlie a friend, a partner in what I'm doing today. And he's such an inspiration to me. Not because he's making investments, because he's taught me things about how he thinks about life. Maybe he doesn't know this, but the way he thinks about stuff is not just about, you know, how am I going to make that next buck? He's figuring out how I can make a difference in people's lives. It's through his faith, it's through everything that he does, through his fabulous LinkedIn blog that he publishes every week, correct? Is that right? Yeah. It's an amazing, amazing trove of treasures of how to build your business, but also how to live your life. So it's with great honor. Thank you, Charlie, for accepting to be the keynote speaker here. I present Charlie Paparelli.
Should I take this? Thank you so much, Sid. When Sid asked me to do this, it was such an honor to be invited here. Thai has been so important to the Atlanta technology community. I remember I thought, oh, wow, there's just the Indians are starting their own thing. But that's not what happened. As you look here, you see that there's a tremendous inclusion. And there's been inclusion from the technology community from the very, very beginning. And this is an organization that serves the community and continues to become more robust each and every year. So congratulations to you leaders and board members on the Thai committee. I mean, it's just incredible. I have been here a long time in Atlanta doing this. And I could say we've had some people that I've been in organizations where they started and then they went away. This is not going away because you have the right people doing the right thing, focused on entrepreneurs. And that's what it's really about. So I went to Sid. I said, I saw the topic for the panel, and I said, I don't want to talk on that topic. He said, well, talk on anything you want to talk on. I said, well, you got to give me a clue. He said, well, you know, there's a lot of people in the audience that are thinking about, or maybe in the future wanting to be, an angel investor. So why don't you talk about maybe how you became an angel investor? And that suggestion was interesting to me because it gave me a chance to look back, to look at my life over these last 30 years. Because I'm one of these, as an angel investor, I look forward. You don't want to look back as an angel investor, so I look forward. And looking forward, this forced me into looking back, and I connected some dots. And I'm hoping that you can kind of follow my life and the decisions that were made, and maybe parallel through my story, your story. Maybe part of it you haven't even lived yet. You know, if you're fairly young, and for those of you a little older, you'll say, yeah, been there and done that and felt that way. So the angel path has been interesting. I've met a lot of angels over the last 30 years. And one of the things that I noticed is that the path to be an angel is very wide. But the path to becoming a professional angel, in other words, doing it as I did, as Sig Mosley did, and some others, the path of doing it professionally, that's what you do. That's a very narrow path. So I'm going to be speaking to that path today. And my path as an angel, which started 30 years ago, started with me being in a corporate career and being dissatisfied. I was 39 years old. 10 years prior, I exited from my startup with my partner, so I had money in the bank, and I decided it would be pretty exciting to go the corporate route, work for these people who bought our company, because they're smart. There was a lot to learn. There was more discipline that I saw that they had that we didn't have in our business. So I went the corporate route. My goal became, I want to be the CEO of bigger and bigger and bigger software companies as I go forward. That was my goal. But what happened was, as my career progressed, I got a bigger title, I got bigger salaries and bonuses, and I got better perks. Life was really good, but I was unfulfilled. Little did I know that this was going to be the catalyst for my change. But I had a problem. I had a family. I have a wife. I have children. We had cars. We had houses. We had education facing us. We had all of these things. And it was my earnings that were actually floating the boat. So here I am, unfulfilled in the greatest job that I ever had in my life, knowing I have these constraints that I have to meet, these responsibilities. I was meeting with my boss over breakfast, and we were pretty close. Good guy, respected each other. And he said to me, we got into, I got a little out of control, to tell you the truth. And he stopped and he said, Charlie, he said, look, if you're not happy here, you should just leave. Now, I'm his CEO. He's the COO. He's the chairman. I said, wow. He said, yeah, I'll be okay, and it will be good for you, and it'll be good for your family. You should just leave. So that's what it took for me to man up and move out, is to leave. But then it begged the question, then what? Now what? What do? I remember walking out of the Galleria. It was a spring day, and the sun was out, and I said, oh, my God, I'm free. And my next thought was, free to do what? I don't know what to do. And so what happened was I really had some time to think about it, and I missed my prior life in startups. That's what I missed. I missed working with what I call real entrepreneurs. I missed them. I missed being in meetings, management meetings, where cash was talked about as the #1 item on the list. Every meeting. I missed that living on the edge. I missed the whiteboard sessions, the strategy whiteboard sessions every Monday morning, where we said, well, last week that didn't work. What should we do this week? Who should we sell it? How should we price it? What should we call it? You know, those times are just great. And being with those entrepreneurs, you know, they just never, ever give up. They know this is why God made them to be here, and they just have to move forward. So what I decided to do was to work in startups again. And I networked myself in Atlanta to this startup called AudioFax. AudioFax was run by a real entrepreneur. His name is Mark Bloomfield. This was back in 1992. And yeah, some of my friends know Mark Bloomfield. And Mark was really bright. He was one of those guys in 92 where if it wasn't a $1 billion idea, it wasn't even worth talking about. And he actually ruined me for a couple of years on that thought. But he had invented store and forward fax. Fax, by the way, was the only way to instantly communicate with people back then. There was no internet. And so I get hired to be the president. He was the CEO. And on the board, there was a first-time angel. He had never invested in any companies before. This was the first one he ever invested in. His name was Sig Mosley. So Sig is sitting there, and I was watching him, and I could see he's kind of learning the ropes here, you know? He's trying to figure out what it's like to be on a board of a startup company where the other board member is the startup founder's father-in-law who put in most of the money and doesn't have any clue as to what's going on. But Sig stayed with it. And what I did is I was there for 8 months, and after 8 months I resigned. And I resigned for a couple of reasons. One, I found myself doing the things that I was doing 10 years ago as a startup. And I said, I don't want to do this. I'm kind of past that. Secondly, I failed. The business model that we had put in place just wasn't working. And the second one and the third one didn't work. So I said, Sig, it's just time for me to move on. And he was very gracious with me. And he said, let's just stay in touch. You know, go your way. We're going to be okay. The business model they wound up with was actually prosecuting the patent is the way that everybody got their money, which was not anything that I knew anything about. But I watched Sig during that time, and I looked at the board, and I said, who do I want to be that's on this board? And there were some pretty impressive people, and I said, I want to be Sig. I want to do what he does. I want to be an angel investor, which then begged the question, how do you do that? I had no idea. But then I said, well, I know. I got a nest egg. I was the minority holder in that startup that I told you about that we cashed out of. And so I had a little bit of a nest egg. I still had the family and those expenses. And I had spent, with that nest egg, you know, coming from humble means, it's my background, that nest egg I had, and I said, I can't lose this. Once I got it, I said, I can't lose it. And that was my attitude. It was this negative attitude of, you can't lose it. You got to protect it. You just got to go and get a job, make more money, and then just add to it. But being an angel investor means risking it to grow it. And I went, ooh, am I ready to do that? I wasn't sure I was ready to do that, to tell you the truth. And then a branch manager of mine came to me. Her name was Claudine. She's a former branch manager from the past business. And Claudine said, she didn't come to me, she actually called me. I was sitting at the pool with our new baby, fourth. This is a lesson for those of you who become unemployed. You always have a new baby when that happens. I'm sitting there with this baby in my arms, who's now 30. And she said, look, I want to start a company with you. I want to head up sales. It's a professional services company. I want to head up sales and marketing and recruiting, and I want you to be the CEO, and I want you to finance the thing. And I said, Claudine, I said, I don't know if I want to do this. She goes, look, if you're in my house by 8:30 tomorrow, we got a deal. And if you're not, I'm starting the company without you. So I didn't sleep that night thinking, well, what else am I doing? So I went, and 8:30, I was there. We started the company. 6 months later, we had 3 people in overhead, counting me, and we had 2 people on billing. I was down $150,000. And Claudine walks into my office and says, I quit. She says, no one can work for you. You're awful. And she said other things too, I won't repeat. But I'm sitting there, she walked out the door, sort of gobsmacked, and I'm in this office with it's sublet space, no windows. And this is about as down as I got, thinking about the family again, thinking I haven't had any income, thinking I'm going nowhere with this business. This is the end of the line. Now what do? Get a job? I hate that. Then I'm just going to live an unfulfilled life. I got a call. Timing's everything. Within an hour, I got a call from a guy named Bob. He's the fellow that I worked with in the startup. He started as a salesman, became the national sales manager for us. Best salesman I ever met in my life, great sales manager. He says, you brought me into AudioFax. I don't want to be here anymore. I want to talk to you. And I said, about what? He said, well, you've got a pretty good network in town. What I want to do is just feed off your network, to tell you the truth. So we got together and we're having lunch, and he says, I said, so why'd you quit? He says, I just don't like the way the CEO is treating people. I don't like the way the CEO is treating me. And I said, Bob, I said, I've talked to you the last 3 jobs. It's the same story. I said, you know what's going on with you? He says, what? I said, you finally figured out who you are. That's your problem. He said, what do you mean? I said, you've made all the mistakes that you had to make through life. Here you are in your late 30s. And I said, you've done things that are successful, and you've come to the conclusion, maybe subconsciously, but you actually know who you are now. He goes, great. Can you help me find the next job? I need a job. I said, no, what you need to do is you need to start your own company. And he said, oh, that would be a pain in the ass. I'm not going to do that. That's too hard. I said, no, you can build it in your image. You can build it with your values. You can attract those people that are just like you. It'll be the most fulfilling thing you've ever done. And he said, well, I don't even know how to start a company. I said, I do. He said, well, what kind of company would I start? I said, I happen to have one. And he said, what is it? I said, it's professional services. He goes, I'm a software guy. I don't know anything about services. I said, it's easy. I'll teach you. I lied about that. Okay. But he said, well, how would will I make money? I said, how much money do you need to pay your bills every month? And he told me, and I said, I'll pay you that. Meanwhile, this is going to be your company. And I told him what the deal was. The next day, he walked in. He was the guy, he was the CEO running that company. 5 years later, he had grown that company to, well, 3.5 years later, he grew the company to $7 million in revenue. From there, being a software guy, he embedded within the company a SaaS-based solution, which then we spun out and became another company. 10 years later, that company was sold for $12 million. And Bob is now retired down in Beaufort somewhere. But that's when I realized, okay, when he said yes, that's when I actually crossed the line and became an angel investor. And because Sid asked me to talk about this, I came up and I said, what are the 5? Yeah, I have 5 minutes. That's not going to happen, brother. You started this meeting off like 30 minutes late. It's my fault now? Hey, I'm not going to take on your consequences here now. All right. Oh, boy, you fell off of there quickly. Anyway, what I did learn is I look back because of Sid asking me to talk about this. As I said, there's really 5 steps that I went through, and I just want to go through them quickly, okay? The first step that was so important to me is, and I realized this, is that knowing my why was just important as my what. It's not one thing to say, and I see this with angel investors. I want to be an angel investor. The question is why? There was 3 good reasons I had for being an angel investor. One is I did and still do love to be around entrepreneurs. I love it. They're always on the edge. They're always positive. They're always hopeful. They're always full of ideas. They're always seeing the world seeing the problems that they can solve. They're seeing opportunities on how to make money. I want to be around that. Also, the creation process. I love creating. I love seeing them take something from nothing and make it into a company. To have this idea that they express to people and see those early employees come on board that want to be a part of that, that they want to do it. And lastly, I love making money and building wealth. It's doing it for a reason, too. That's all part of it. So those three things. So I need, that was my why for getting into being a professional angel investor. Then the next thing that comes up is I need to bring my resources and my experience to the table. Everything that happened in my life, from birth, from my family, my backgrounds, everything, my experience in that startup, having worked every single job you can work, from customer support to helping, being an analyst, helping the programmers program the product, to thinking they went too slow and programming the product myself by learning how to code. By moving into, I remember one time that my partner came to me and he said, we've got 8 people coming in for a 1-week class. This was Friday. And he says, you need to teach it for the week. I said, there's nothing here. He says, yeah, you got the weekend to figure out how to put the materials together and teach it, which I did. Those are the things that happen in startups. And you learn each of you. You're in the strategy meetings and marketing and all that. I learned all of that. Then we went to an exit. I learned when it's ready to sell. I learned what that process is. I learned how to deal with lawyers, CPAs, okay, and the like. I learned how to make announcements at company meeting that we've now been acquired, okay. I learned what it's like to work for a big company. After having done that, all of this, all of those resources, all that experience, I'm bringing with me as an angel investor to help these people, these entrepreneurs. And of course, I brought my money. Then here's the tough part. There is a preparation period. That's the third step. The preparation period is brutal. Well, it was for me. The preparation period is, I was, for the last 10 years, a general manager, CEO of companies. I ran things. Angel investors don't run things. So I'm figuring, like, where does this go? Well, when is this? I had to come to the conclusion, when I looked myself in the mirror, I had a problem. And that is that I was an alcoholic. I could not stop drinking every single night. I just couldn't. Every day I'd wake up and say, I'm not going to drink tonight. 5 o'clock I was drinking again. So I called a friend of mine, and not a friend, an old neighbor, and I said, he said, what do you want? I said, well, we hadn't talked in a couple of years, but I heard you went to a rehab thing. I want to know about it. He said, let's meet for lunch. We met for lunch. He told me how his life got out of control, and I thought, well, he was older than me, and I said, I don't think that'll happen to me. Yes, it will. It'll happen to me too. What's different between us? So he said, let's go to an AA meeting. 180 days, 180 meetings, and 180 days later. I was serious because I knew I had a vision that said if I didn't stop drinking, I would lose everything that was valuable to my life. Wife, kids, everything. That led me to, after 6 months, I was sober. A miracle was done in my life by this higher power. And I asked the question, who's the higher power? To myself. I followed it down the line. People came into my life. And I discovered the higher power was Jesus Christ in my life. That's what I discovered. He loved me. He sacrificed for me, and he saved me. So now I go forward. From that point on, I went forward, living my life by trusting him. That's what I did. Now, big change took place. I was no longer this CEO leader. I was now a servant because I now served God. I had an authority in my life that I didn't before. The big aha moment there was, there is a God and it's not me. And that's a good way to start being an angel investor. And so that's what I did. I went from being a leader, somebody who operated and ran companies, to someone who actually was there to serve. And who did I serve? Entrepreneurs. That's the part where I say that's the preparation period you have to go through. Then I realized, got two left, angel investing is a business, like any other business. Now, I've been doing angel investing for a while, and maybe I didn't think it through this clearly, but here's what a business has to have. A business has to identify a problem in the marketplace. A business has to identify the person who has the problem. The business has to come up with a solution to solve the problem that the person will pay for. And the business has to have a sustainable model where it makes money and it can keep going. All those elements need to be in a business. That's no different than angel investing. What I did is I saw back then, this is in the 90s, that there were vice presidents of software companies. They were vice presidents of services. And what they were saying, I'm sick and tired of being the redheaded stepchild in this software company. Services is important. I have an idea on how to make this, make it into a business that would be an exciting business for the people that work for me to be a part of. I would find those people and I'd say, you should start your own company. And they say, well, I want to start my own company, but I've got, guess what? The wife, the kids, the cars, the education, got all that, right? What do I do? And I said, I have a solution for you. I said, one, I know how to start a company. I can be the executive on the board. I can help you through launching this thing. When we finish our conversation here today, you come to my office, you sit at your desk, you're going to have your name, company name, logos, stationaries, contracts for HR, personnel contracts, all your customer contracts, everything in place, plus a full accounting system and an accounting personnel behind you. They said, all I got to do is show up. I said, phone's there for you. You come, bring your computer, let's go. And we started companies that way. That was my business model. And so then what happened, we just went off and we built businesses. And the last step is I became a disciplined investor. I stayed on it. That was my model until it started working and I started making money. Then when I started making money, people would come to me and they'd say, you should take advantage of this opportunity and this opportunity and that opportunity. And I started spreading it. I spread it because the companies, the professional services company went through a lull and they weren't coming to me anymore. Those VPs of services, they weren't leaving software companies post.com. And so I just started spreading it, being undisciplined, and that was the end of that. I started losing money. 10 years later, I became disciplined again. And I started investing in only software-enabled services companies. That's my whole background. So, those are your 5 steps. The first step you want to be is, and all of this starts with discontent. That first step, you have to know your why before you do your what. And the second step is take every part of your experience to the table, all your resources. Thirdly, go through this transition from being leader to servant. And then you're going to actually get through building a business model and then sticking to it and make sure you're successful. And that's how I became an angel investor. And one thing I'll just share at the very end, something that I learned, as I said earlier, about your why. I learned it from the entrepreneurs that were all successful for me, all of them. And that is, if you are clear on your why, you can accomplish any what. Thank you.